Mark Cuban was at a conference in Nashville, Tennessee, and he was talking a little bit about what happened with Donald Sterling and how the NBA is going to vote on what to do with Donald Sterling and whether or not he can continue to be the owner of the Clippers. And he said that he is planning on voting. He knows which way he will vote. However, he's not revealing it. He doesn't want to get into it. But he does talk about what he considers a slippery slope when it comes to the treatment of Donald Sterling. So I want to read you guys the quote. And then you'll decide what you think about it. So when it comes to the vote, he says the following: "You'll find out. I know how I'm going to vote, but I'm not ready to comment on it. I know I'm prejudiced, and I know I'm bigoted in a lot of different ways. If I see a black kid in a hoodie on my side of the street, I'll move to the other side of the street." Then he continues on and says, "If I see a white guy with a shaved head and tattoos, I'll move back to the other side of the street. None of us have pure thoughts. We all live in glass houses." So Ben, what do you think about his comments?
I think it's always funny when people use, like, who walks down the street and switches sides of the street when they say people coming? Like, this is just literally not a thing that I think happens a lot.
Right.
Right. But it's everybody's example. Walking down, I don't think I've ever crossed. I don't pay attention to who's in front of me. I don't think I've ever been like I take my glasses off, because that would help. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't move. So it's dumb. It's a dumb way of putting things. But I don't think he should be 100% vilified, because he's Mark Cuban and he says dumb things. Like, this is
he known for saying dumb things?
Oh yeah, definitely. He puts his foot in his mouth a lot with the league. He gets in trouble. He says things that, and I'm sure he's one of those guys who thinks, "Hey man, I'm just telling it like it is," right? But and he thinks he's being honest. What he's done here is a very typical racialist move. And I don't think for a half a second that Mark Cuban is racist. Mm-hmm. What he's right about is that we all have prejudices that we don't always acknowledge and that we have to fight them. But what Mark Cuban said is, if he sees a black kid with a hoodie on my side of the street, I'll move to the other side of the street. And then he tries to make it fair by saying, rightly, if you see a white guy with a shaved head and tattoos, he'll move back to the other side of the street. So he gives the white guy's got to have other things wrong with him other than being white. The black kid, he just needs to be black.
Yeah.
So like I get it. I mean, look, there's ways, if you're so desperate to make that example, you can do it. You can say, if I see two black guys coming down the street and they look like they're wearing Crip colors, gang colors, I might move to the side of the street. I might move to the other side of the street. And then if I see guys who look like they're in the Aryan Nation, shit, I'll move back. I'll take my chances with the Crips. Yeah. But mostly I walk down the middle of the street. But of course, what he's done here is suggest that a black kid just needs to be black, but a white kid needs to have a Nazi tattoo and shave his head, and then only. So, but he thinks he's being fair, and he's making an effort to be fair, and I think he should be, in his ignorance, I think he should be slightly commended for that.
So look, this is speculation. I don't know, but there's something really strange going on with Cuban and the whole Donald Sterling story, because when it first came out, he didn't necessarily come to his defense. He was saying that Donald Sterling said hideous things, yada, yada. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But then he said something like, I don't know if we should kick him out. I don't know if we should get rid of him. Like, it's a slippery slope. I remember him using that wording.
Yeah.
And then later on, he said that he agreed with the decision to ban him from the NBA. So
said 100% he agreed with it.
Yeah, he agreed with it 100%. But I feel like there's something on him that he's afraid of leaking. Like, I think that, I know that he got investigated, right, by the SEC?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you give me some details about that?
Because I don't have many. I know that he was investigated again, by, like as you said, by the SEC. I think it might still be ongoing. But I think it's the kind of thing that results in a fine. But I think what he's worried about is that if his business practices are questioned, he's a defiant NBA owner who has clashed with the league at times. Overall, I think they're very happy with him. He's brought a degree of sort of style and panache to the league that other owners don't have. It's a league of where guys most of the owners look like Donald Sterling, or many of them do, right? And here was this sort of young internet billionaire, right, who sort of comes up and he's kind of good looking and fun. He's on the cutting edge of TV, and I think he helped the league. But he's always criticizing the officials and doing things that he shouldn't do.
So while they investigated him, or are continuing to investigate him, is it possible that they're obtaining records, maybe email conversations, something like that?
I don't know that you're correct in your assessment of that he's trying to hide something, but he might be worried, and I think it's a fair point. Look, Bill Maher made the same point. Look, Donald Sterling said hideous things in what he assumed, and what he had every reason to assume was a private conversation, right? Every reason to believe that that conversation was private between him and somebody intimate in his life, right? And it turned out it wasn't, and now he's going to lose his basketball team because of that, because of things he said. I think that there is a reasonable reaction to that, which says, that's messed up. And I think that some owners would think, I don't want to vote guys out for that. Like if he undermines the integrity of the league by cheating in some way, or giving his team an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
I'm with the flip side to that is he signed an agreement to be a league, and part of that is that the owners have 75 or 80% of the owners can get together and say, we don't want you here anymore.
Right, and also he has no business owning a team, and the reason why I say that is because there's been testimony from people that he worked with indicating that he would bring women into the men's locker room and treat the men as if they were his property, like, oh, look at them, look at my blacks. Look at my blacks. Okay, he has control over athletes that are black,
right?
And that I don't feel comfortable with that.
No, none
to say the least.
But here's where I defend Mark Cuban. Nobody feels comfortable with that. Mark Cuban doesn't feel comfortable with that. There's no way that Mark Cuban and Donald Sterling are friends. But because Donald Sterling does these reprehensible things, you can't literally take his team from it. It's an asset he owns in America because nobody thinks we can take Clive and Bundy's ranch. We can force him to pay the federal fees, but nobody thinks that the government can come in and just take his property. So who would just take his property? That's his. At the bare minimum, if he's forced to give up his team, we've got to pay him for it.
Right.
And there's a process that they have to go, and he gets to defend himself. And I think Cuban and some other owners are just worried about that process.